Hello, welcome to FHE on the Road with Christine Stevenson. This podcast is designed to connect the people and the places from the past with your lives today, with 5-minute stories and facts from church history. Save these stories for when you are traveling through these areas to bring history to life. Okay, welcome back to FHE on the Road with Christine. Today we're going to tell the story of Joseph Smith being attacked by the mob in Kirtland. I know this story is not unfamiliar. A lot of people have heard it, and I found Joseph Smith's actual writings on what occurred, and I thought it was really interesting. Hopefully you get something out of this too. Let me give some background really fast. Joseph and Emma had lost their first son in Harmony, Pennsylvania on June 15th, 1828, and then Emma was pregnant with twins when they traveled to Kirtland. She gave birth on April 30th, 1831, and those sweet babies only lived 3 hours before they passed away. So they had lost 3 babies, and at the same time, there's a man named John Murdoch who had lost his wife to childbirth, and so he had twins and didn't feel like he could take care of them. He asked Joseph and Emma to raise them. And so Joseph and Emma adopted these twins. He named them Joseph and Julia, and they were 11 months old when this story happened. So let me read what Joseph Smith said about what happened that night. So these are his words. He says, "On the 24th of March, 1832, the twins before mentioned, which I had been sick of measles for some time, caused us to be broken of our rest in taking care of them, especially my wife. In the evening I told her she'd better rest or retire to rest with one of the children, and I would watch the sicker child. In the night she told me I had better lie down on the trundle. I did so, and was soon after awakened by her screaming murder, when I found myself going out the door at the hands of a dozen men, some of whose hands were in my hair, some had hold of my shirt, drawers, limbs. I made a desperate struggle, and I was forced out to extricate myself, but only cleared one leg, with which I made a pass at one man, and he fell on the doorstep. I was immediately overpowered again, and they swore they would kill me if I did not be still, which quieted me. As they passed around the house with me, the fellow I had kicked came to me and thrust his hands, all covered with blood, in my face, and with an exulting hoarse laugh muttered, 'I'll fix ya.' They then seized me by the throat and held it till I lost my breath. After I came to, as they had passed along with me, about 30 rods from my house, I saw Elder Rigdon stretched out on the ground, whither they had dragged him by his heels. I supposed he was dead. I began to plead with them, saying, 'You will have mercy and spare my life, I hope,' to which they replied, 'Call on your God for help. We'll show you no mercy.' And the people began to show themselves in every direction, one coming from the orchard with a plank. I expected they would kill me and carry me off on the plank. They turned to the right and went on about 30 rods further, about 60 rods from the house, and 30 from where I saw Elder Rigdon in the meadow. Where they stopped, one said, 'Pull up his drawers, he'll take cold.' Another one replied, 'Ain't you going to kill him?' They held a council, as I could occasionally overhear a word. I suppose it was to know whether or not it was best to kill me. They returned after a while, when I learned that they concluded not to kill me, but to beat me and scratch me well, tear off my shirt and drawers, and leave me naked. One cried, 'Simons, where's the tar bucket?' 'I don't know,' answered one. 'It's where Eli left it.' They ran back and fetched the bucket of tar, when one exclaimed, 'Let us tar up his mouth.' They tried to force the tar paddle in my mouth. I twisted my head around so that they could not, and they cried out, 'Hold your head up and let us give you some tar.' They then tried to force the vial in my mouth and broke it in my teeth. All my clothes were torn off of me except my shirt collar. One man fell on me and scratched my bodies with his nails like a mad cat and muttered, 'That's the way the Holy Ghost falls on folks.' Then they left me, and I attempted to rise, but fell again. I pulled the tar from my lips so that I could breathe more freely. After a while I began to recover and raise myself up, whereupon I saw 2 lights. I made my way towards one of them, and found it was Father Johnson. When I came to the door, I was naked, and the tar made me look as if I was covered in blood. When my wife saw me, she thought I was all crushed into pieces, and fainted. During the array abroad, the sisters of the neighborhood had collected in my room. I called for a blanket, and they threw me one and shut the door. I wrapped it around me and went in. My friends spent the night in scraping and removing the tar and washing and cleansing my body, so that in the morning I was ready to be clothed again. This being the Sabbath morning, the people assembled for a meeting at the usual hour of worship, and among them came also the mobbers. With my flesh all scarified and defaced, I preached to the congregation as usual, and in the afternoon the same day baptized 3 individuals." End quote. So I cannot believe how terrible that night was for Joseph and Sydney. There were lasting consequences to what happened that night. The main thing, the most terrible thing of them all, is that little baby that Joseph Smith was taking care of that night. Joseph, he ended up passing away from the events of that night. He was so sick, and then leaving the door open, he couldn't make it, that poor little baby. And I can't imagine the sorrow that Joseph and Emma faced from this. Not only what happened to Joseph, but that sweet little baby that they loved so much. It's so, so sad. And also for the rest of his life, Joseph spoke with a slight whistle because they broke his tooth. And Sidney Rigdon suffered mental difficulties forever from it. They think he suffered from PTSD. And I guess this story is so tragic, and I hate that this happened to Joseph. But I love that Joseph had such determination to the work of God that he got up the next day and taught a sermon and baptized 3 mobbers. I can't believe that he wouldn't let something like that stop him or just take a day off. But I think that Joseph Smith sounds incredible. I am amazed at what he was able to do in his short life. And I know that it is through the power of God that he was able to do what he did. And I know that this story is a really sad one. It's a really hard one to hear, but I am thankful for the lessons that we learned of charity and forgiveness and love and being able to overcome really, really hard, difficult trials. Anyways, I hope you got something from this too. Thanks. Thank you for listening to FHE on the road today. We hope you enjoyed what you've heard. Please like, subscribe, and share with anyone who'd be interested in these stories. Thanks.